Top of the day, beautiful people. Top of the day. Shayla, mama. Shalom, shalom. Gotta give me some water. All right, beautiful people. That's right. Let me read that. And then I'm gonna go back page. 589. All right, beautiful people. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. It is September the 12th, 2022, day 210 of year 4, reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1214. Today, we picking back up in God's book of Eskra. We're going to start back on page 589 because I said I wanted to reread chapter 8. So we're going to start right there and carry on until the end of the hour. All right, so Ray, hi, Tikva, bless up. Danette, greetings. Auntie, Belinda Brown, Grand Rising. Hannah, peace and blessings. Anita, greetings. Tanya Bumberry, Grand Rising. And everybody else here hanging out in the background. All right, beautiful people, let's get started. Let's see. Kendra, shalom, shalom. Father, you are not one who can be debated. Matter of fact, there hasn't even been a language created yet, nor will I think there ever will be one that could even formulate words to debate you and your words. All right, beautiful people. All right, so page 589, God's book of Eskra, chapter 8. Jehovah hath said, I gave to man legs and feet to walk, arms and hands to work, eyes to see, and ears to hear, and withal the capacity to reflect and comprehend and understand. I gave none of these capacities to man to lie dormant or to be useless. Neither can any man advance to my highest kingdoms if crippled or weak or uncultivated in all or in part of these talents I have given him. But he shall be perfected in all particulars before he is capacitated for companionship with my exalted ones. The Lord said, It mattereth little what kind of workmanship a man doeth, for one may till the soil and thus train his hands and arms to full development, and another may weave or spin or forge iron, and also attain full development. It is not the kind of labor, but the development that comes of useful practice, which maketh every talent to stand upright in heaven as a glory to the Creator. Right? So it don't matter what we do, as long as we do it consistently, diligently, with all our might, right? Because we grow. We become proficient in what we do, whereby we should be known as experts for what we know, for what we are known for. Verse 5, page 589. For there be servants on earth who neither read nor write, that are better developed in their talents and members than many of the rich and kings and philosophers. And when they die and enter my heavenly places, the ranks and caste in my kingdoms seem to them to be upside down. The rich man or the king or the pleader, lawyer, or priest or the philosopher may be as a helpless child, while he who was as a pauper on the earth may be as a very God over them to lift them up. Neither is there preference to the rich, nor the poor, nor to the philosopher, nor the fool, for any of these may be as dwarfs in some talent or part, whilst also any of these may be a most perfect man in spirit. So God established through his high raised officers schools and colleges and factories, heavenly, adapted to the spirits of the dead, even as similar places are established on the earth for mortals. And here's where chapter 9 begins. Set apart. Shalom, shalom. Happy new day. The Lord said, aside from the orderly kingdoms of God, there were 7 false kingdoms in Hada, ruled over by false gods and false goddesses. Chief of these were Baal, with 4,000 million angel slaves, the false Yema, with 4,000 million angel slaves, Ashtaroth, false goddess, with 3,000 million angel slaves, Hilazar, with 3,000 million angel slaves, Sardinus, goddess with 2 million angel slaves, and then came Fusin Hari Vatsa. Besides these, there were 600 false lords and lordesses who had occupied the mortal temples of worship and the oracle temples. And how did they get angel slaves? Because they tricked them while they were still here in the flesh. Those angel slaves were once humans who are now what we call dead, but they are very much alive, right? And if they didn't get that right, or if they were led astray by one of these false lords, lordesses, gods, or goddesses, by default, they end up in their kingdom in Hada until they're rescued, right? Or rescued being they will have to grow and understand before they can get out of that state, right? And they don't stay there forever. Verse 2, but we want to make sure we don't even get tricked into going in there and be made a slave. You made a slave here on earth with false doctrine and religion and stuff. Lord have mercy. If you leave here and you steal one, right? But the latter were driven away from mortals by command of God, that they might be induced to seek resurrection. And God foresaw that the travel of the earth would cause her to pass through an Aegean forest of 400 years, and that darkness would be upon the lower heavens. Remember, Aegean or Aegean is darkness, or period of darkness. I reread it. And God foresaw that the travel of the earth would cause her to pass through an Aegean forest of 400 years, and that darkness would be upon the lower heavens. And God sent down to the earth angel inspectors, enumerators, and recorders to prepare the record of mortals for the libraries of heaven. And there were inspectors, 400 angels, and after 400, down at the bottom, it says 400,000 angels. 400 angels, of numerators 12,000, and graders 90,000, of recorders and scribes 40,000, and of bearers 600,000. Besides these, there were the messengers, heralds, and musicians, of whom there were 60,000. Definitely seeing some of these recorders in my dream because they're actually there with they're actually there. You can look at them and tell that they're recording. I've seen them, recorders and scribes in my dreams. Verse 5, such was the army sent down to the earth according to God's command, and they were in charge of Toi Vragaha and Eulis and Hagante and Rufus. And God called up the great mathematicians, Yemus, Menres, Fargawatha, Howard Chakal, Jemima, Jordan, Molaka, Cositas, Makas, and Agban. And God said unto them, the time of the fall of Aji on the earth is at hand. Compute ye the regions of the earth where it will fall most, and having determined, go ye to the mortal prophets who are in Suis, and cause them to prophesy unto the inhabitants of the earth. The mathematicians saluted and departed for the earth, as commanded of God. Now, when God foresaw that darkness was near at hand for a period of 400 years, he commanded his holy council and his heavenly kingdoms to pray to Jehovah for the space of one day for wisdom and strength. In answer to their prayers, there came a swift messenger from Leka, Orion chief, son of Jehovah. He came from Takuspi in the Etherian worlds in an Etherian aeroship with 30,000. His name was Yataportas, god of Iriasa, in the plains of Wusin. And when he had come before the throne of God, duly saluting, he said, in Jehovah's name I come, greeting by his son Leka. God said, in Jehovah's name I am blessed by thy presence, God of Iriasa, Nirvanian host. What wouldest thou? Yatapratas said, by command of Jehovah, through his exalted Son, thou shalt withdraw thine emissaries from the kingdom of Baal and Ashtaroth, and from all kingdoms of the earth, whose mortals pay obedience to false gods. Aji of 400 years will fall upon the earth and her heavens. And after a fall, it has number 11, reference number 11 at the bottom. For fall, it says rain. Aji of 400 years will fall upon the earth and her heavens. It is so determined and provided by the holy Etherian dispensers of roads in Vragapathan. And after Vragapathan is the reference letter C. Let's hop over to the end of the chapter on page 640. And C says, this passage clearly implies that the regions of Dan, Ga, Aj, or nebula, through which the solar phalanx passes as it travels through the Savoricum, are not chance encounters. All of these occurrences are planned and provided for intentionally and in advance by the Etherian host to address specific needs in the evolution of the planet's inhabitants. An oak tree requires sun, rain, and the change of seasons to grow properly. And humanity requires periods of both light and darkness at specific times for its spiritual growth as well. Consequently, periods of darkness may seem like a catastrophe to some atmospheric inhabitants, but in the larger context, these events are required for the proper development of the planet and its inhabitants as a whole. I believe that. I definitely believe that. I can even see that down here on a lower level in my personal life where I would think were periods of darkness, but I think it's those times that helped me grow the most, right? And my eyes were open just a little bit more and I began to look at life a little bit differently, right? Audrey, shalom, Uncle JB. Shalom, Shiru. All praises to the Creator, sis. All right. I'll read verse 12 again, page 590. Yatapratas said, by command of Jehovah, through his exalted Son, thou shalt withdraw thine emissaries from the kingdoms of Baal and Ashtaroth, and from all kingdoms on the earth, whose mortals pay obedience to false gods. Aji of 400 years will fall upon the earth and her heavens. It is so determined and provided by the holy Etherian dispensers of roads in Vragapathan, of which matters I am sent to thee, that thou mayest be duly provided therefore. The time is also now at hand when the Ehenes will cease to dwell on the earth. And after Ehenes is reference number 12. And at the bottom for Ehenes, it says, the Ehenes, the sacred people, the mound builders will cease to dwell. The time is also... Hey, son. Okay. Page 590, verse 13. The time is also now at hand when the Ehenes will cease to dwell on the earth. The darkness which is necessary to the earth will be too much for them. The heavens that have heretofore received their spirits shall be dissolved, and the plateaus thereof removed to the outer rim of the earth's vortex. The Lord's reports showed there were at this time on the earth 2,300,000 Ehenes. Of these, 700,000 inhabited Egypt and Western Arabia, 200,000 inhabited China, the Japheth of the ancients, and the balance, for the most part, inhabited North Gautama and toward Han Yapan. And Han Yapan has reference letter D after it. Let's hop back over to page 640. And D says Han Yapan, Central America. All right, so now we got it. We got North Gautama, Han Yapan, and South Gautama. North America, Central America, South America. Write that down. Han Yapan. Okay. Tabitha, greetings, sis. All right, back page 590, verse 15. Such then were all that remained of a people that once covered over the whole earth, more than 1,000 million of them. God declared a day of recreation in honor of Yata Portas, and the angels of heaven had great rejoicing. On the day following, Yatap, I keep saying his name wrong, Yoda Portas, with his host departed for Ereasa in Ether. Chapter 10. Toi Vragaha and Hagante and Eulus and Rufus with their hosts returned from their voyage to the earth and brought records of the standing of mortals in all the tribes and nations of the earth, and of their numbers and their grades and generations, and of the faithless in all the different regions of the earth, and of idolaters and of all matters pertaining to mortals. And these records were filled in the libraries of heaven, and a copy of them sent to the Etherian regions and the roadway of the earth and her heavens. You look for something?
Yeah.
What? Let me take a sip of water.
Have you seen it?
Whew. What?
Have you seen
You must be talking about me.
I was talking about you.
I knew you were. Okay. Verse 2. Of Faithists, there were 31,300,000. In China, 13,700,000. In Vidu, 3,300,000. In Western Arabia, Canaan, 6,200,000. And in North Gautama, 8,100,000. And of all the rest of the inhabitants of the earth, there were 1,100 million. Of these, upward of 97% were capable of everlasting life. Verse 4. Of the faithists of China, suffice this, though they maintained the rites and ceremonies of the ancients, they lived not wholly as a separate people, save in a few places, but they were the head and front of learning and of teaching all the applied arts and industries. Let me read that whole sentence again. Of the faithists of China, suffice this, though they maintained the rites and ceremonies of the ancients, they lived not wholly as a separate people, save in a few places, but they were the head and front of learning and of teaching all the applied arts and industries, while the idolaters of Jas and Tayan and Po were less learned. God said of China, this is a good work. Whoso shapeth the education of a people will ultimately found them in their own doctrines. The faithless will make these people a great people. That's good. Let's highlight that, right? We should be helping make all these people of the earth, wherever we reside, a great people, right? Because we hold a higher learning, a higher way of living that comes from the Creator Himself. God said of China, this is a good work. Whoso shapeth the education of a people will ultimately found them in their own doctrines. The faithists will make these people a great people. Nevertheless, great wars are near at hand here. The idolaters, being warriors, will suffer most, and the faithists who practice peace will greatly gain upon them. And it was even so, as will be presently shown. Of the faithists of Vidu, suffice this: they lived in families and small colonies. They practiced the rites and ceremonies, nor were there, nor were there any laws against them as in the olden times. But because of the many languages in this country, all peoples were afflicted. God said, no people can advance much whilst they have many languages. Of the faithists of Western Arabia, who for the most part called themselves Israelites, suffice this: the two branches still remain, those who lived under the oral law and those who lived under the written law. The latter were called Leviticans, that is, hangers on, and of imperfect flesh and spirit. And this is not the first place where we've seen this. Let me highlight this again. Oh, and it's going to the Leviticans just a little bit more for all the lovers of the Levitican laws. Let me read this again. Verse 8, page 591, we're in chapter 10, God's book of Eskra. Of the faithists of Western Arabia, who forgot, I'm sorry, no, of the faithists of Western Arabia, who, for the most part, called themselves Israelites, suffice this. The two branches still remain, those who lived under the oral law and those who lived under the written law. The latter were called Leviticans, that is, hangers on, and of imperfect flesh and spirit. The Leviticans were not scrupulous as regardeth war and the preservation of their seed, and in consequence of their sins, they brought great shame upon the faithists in general. And the Levitican examples were evil, and they gained in numbers faster than the Oralites. The Leviticans worshiped the Great Spirit under the names Lord and God. As for the Oralites, so called, because their doctrines and teachings were secret and only spoken, being taught man to man and woman to woman orally, they were non resistant and they owed nothing, giving all things to the Rabbah for the public good. Their practice was love and harmony, doing righteously in all things and trusting to Jehovah, whom they worship under the name Eoah. All the prophets and seers were born of Oralites, and we can clearly see that all through the Old Testament, right? There is a very, 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 very clear difference between the prophets and all the rest of Israel. There really is. Go back and read it all over again, and you will see. Like all this stuff has been there in front of our face, but certain things hadn't been pointed out to us. So remember, whoever teaches you, you fall under their doctrine and you see as they see, and you see as they see. But if they don't have a higher light, neither will you, right? It's not until you're exposed to higher light that you can see what they couldn't see, right? And now you can grow a little bit more and able to remove yourself from false doctrines. Trina Hager, hey, Fritz. Trina got a question. Listen, remember when y'all was over here? Tiffany Hager, hey, did y'all leave the puppy's doggy carrying bag? There is a puppy carrying case like you carry tiny puppies in here in our garage. We can't figure out who it belongs to. Like, how did it even get here? I was like, we could have sworn they put their puppy back in a bag and put the bag in a car. But there's a puppy bag here. Is it yours? I don't know. Let me know. We're trying to figure it out. I hope the kids just ain't seen one and just picked it up and brought it here to the house, because there are no very little creatures here. Okay. I'm just wondering. We're trying to figure this out before we just throw it away. Okay. Let me go back. Let me start at verse 8 again. Of the faithists of Western Arabia, right? Remember, Arabia is Africa. It's a portion of Africa. Of the faithists of Western Arabia, who for the most part call themselves Israelites, suffice this. The two branches still remain, those who live under the oral law and those who live under the written law. The latter were called Leviticans, that is, hangers on, and of imperfect flesh and spirit. The Leviticans were not scrupulous as regardeth war and the preservation of their seed, and in consequence of their sins, they brought great shame upon the faithists in general. And the Leviticans' examples were evil, and they gained in numbers faster than the Oralites. The Leviticans worshiped the Great Spirit under the names Lord and God. As for the Oralites, so called, because their doctrines and teachings were secret and only spoken, being taught man to man and woman to woman orally, they were non resistant and they owned nothing, giving all things to the Rabbah for the public good. Their practice was love and harmony, doing righteously in all things, and trusting to Jehovah, whom they worship under the name Eoah. All the prophets and seers were born of the Oralites. And so great was the spiritual power of the Oralites that during all these hundreds of years, the faithists, 6 million, had lived without king or governor, being as a multitude of communities. Of the faithists of Guatemala, America, there were they were little learned but were peaceful and industrious, and they comprised all the inhabitants save the Ehines in all the land. And they also lived without kings or governors, and every town was ruled over by a rabbah, and a combination of towns by a chief rabbah. And the tribes were made into states with chief rabbis as representatives, and these states were united into a great government called the Algonquin. Today we know that as the United States of America, right? And all the governments were made and maintained for the benefit of tribes that might suffer by famines or fevers. And yet there was not amongst all these million of people one tyrant or dictator. Now, somebody that can give you a really, really good history, we talked about it before, Global Purpose, Grand Rising, somebody who can give you a really, really good history on the Americas during this time and all the way back in the early times, 1300s, 1200s, all of that, with the how the Americas and even how the name progressed and changed over the years is Curimeo, right? I shared him before. A lot of y'all know who that is, but he gets into a lot of deep detail, and there are a lot of references out there regarding all of this stuff about the Americas and how it was governed and the states and how it was broken up, all that good stuff, even the native people to the land and the food and stuff they ate and how they lived spiritually, all through North America, South America, Central America. He has all the references for that. He a beast with that. Okay. Page 591. I'll share him again. Everybody probably know Mail. I think I said his name right. All right. I'll share his page in the community section and the comments section of both YouTube and Facebook. His videos are always at least 2 hours long because it's really, really good history lessons with references, documents, all that stuff, right? So he's like a whole history teacher over there, but it's good. And he gives visuals and stuff like that. Okay. Chapter 11, page 591. And now came earth and heaven into the Augean forest of Agonodis, and the pressure was upon all sides of the earth's vortex, even beyond Chinvat. And the heavenly kingdoms were stirred up, and the nations of the earth were in trial. In the great city of paradise, heavenly seat of God, were the multitudes of angels, the thousands of millions made to look upward, outward to know the Almighty. As Aji driveth the weak angels out of heaven to seek a lower field, so doth it on earth drive polluted nations to war and to avarice and to death. And after driveth the weak angels out, after out is reference number 13. And down at the bottom it says, drive angels, well, it says angels out of heaven. So that it driveth the weak angels out of heaven to seek a lower field, so doth it on earth drive polluted nations to war and to avarice and to death. But yet, when yet but the second shower of a dozen years had fallen, mortals and many nations of the earth rushed into war. And even the faithless began to clamor for kings and standing armies with great captains and generals to lead them on to mortal dominion. The Israelites made a mortal king, and by their behavior said, rather man than Jehovah. Behold, we will have the Lord with us to fight our battles. And Baal, God of the idolaters, heard and saw, and glory in the chorus, and he hastened to the scene with millions of his angel slaves to inspire the Israelites to glory in the Lord and God, whom he assumed to be. And millions of the Israelites fell beneath his power and became his spiritual slaves. The others, still steadfast in the secret oral rites, remained true to the secret name and person, Jehovah, Eoah. Hmm? What? No, Eo. No, girl. No, Eoa. She said Igor, like from Winnie the Pooh. It's E dash O dash I H Eola. And some people pronounce it Eolin. Okay. Verse 9, page 591. The which Ashtaroth saw, and first time of all, after 2,000 years, friendship to Baal, she became jealous and filled with vengeful wrath. She said, I see now how this traitorous God hath planned to beat me in the regions of west, in the regions west of Hellas and Europa. By the flesh of my thighs am I sworn, this thing shall not be. Remember, Europa is Europe, Europe has been in the news lately. By the flesh of my thighs am I sworn, this thing shall not be. I will send 100 million warring angels down to Babylon and Tyre and Yedmon and Luz, and inspire their mortal kings to make war on the westward cities, the strongholds of Baal. And as to impoverish Egypt, I will send thither mortal armies sufficient to destroy everything in the land thereof.
This is stuff on my witch thing.
Oh, okay. Yea, I will send my legions also amongst the Israelites and inspire them that I, Ashtaroth, am the only true Lord and true God. I will divide them up as a broken bundle of straw and cast them to the four winds of heaven. On the other hand, Baal said, because of my success, I know Ashtaroth will be jealous and full of anger. Therefore, I will place a standing army betwixt her heavens and mine, and if she but dare to molest me, I will send my millions against her heavens and despoil her utterly, that she may be cast into hell. Page 592, chapter 12. God, Son of Jehovah, through his holy counsel in paradise, his heavenly seat, now decreed. To the faithfulness of Arabenia, Ebenezer, captain with 5 million angels as a protecting host. To the faithfulness of China, Luitha, captain with 10 million angels as a protecting host. To the faithfulness of Vidu, Li Chong, captain with 8 million angels as a protecting host. To the faithfulness of Gautama, Manito, captain with 10 million angels as a protecting host. And I'll put it back. And to each of the captains, I give authority to draw additional armies from the lords who hold dominions in the regions where they may be. But it so happened that the lowest heavenly plateaus were also engaged in wars. And in less than 100 years of Aji, many of the lords were without kingdoms, and with a few chosen friends were become involuntary wandering spirits scattered about in all the heavens of the earth or upon the earth. God saw this, and he called out to them through his messengers. He called unto them, saying, having lost your kingdoms, why will ye lose yourselves? Is it not better that ye fall too in the remaining kingdoms, and by your steadfastness help to maintain faith in Jehovah in the hearts of the less learned? But Satan, or self, gained access to their souls, saying to each one of them, thou who hast been Lord of the hosts of heaven, thou take a place like a common laborer, thou wouldest be laughed at. The non resistant policy is good enough in times and places of peace, but now is war. And war can only be overcome by war. If great Deus was overcome and cast into hell, why not our God also? So they heeded not God. Chapter 13. And there came to paradise of lords and high officers whose heavenly places had fallen, different companies of tens and twenties and even hundreds from various heavenly regions around about the earth, and having secured audience before God and his holy council, they said, since we have been faithful in all things and dutiful servants to Jehovah, what have we gained? Our kingdoms and high places have fallen to pieces from no fault of our own. Yea, our angels have gone off into anarchy. Where then is the justice of Jehovah? God said unto them, of what profit under the sun is discussion? If ye fail in one way, try another, and in no case seek to justify yourselves before Jehovah. He is judge. There are already hills that have been standing for years. Is it not wiser that ye join together and go and deliver them? Behold, Jehovah hath furnished us roadways beforehand, and his voice came to us prophesying that this same darkness will come upon us. And ye were advised and had sufficient time to provide for the worst. Go ye forth then, not complaining, but rejoicing, and in Jehovah's name, doing with all your wisdom and strength, regardless of favor. Thus they came, group after group, for years before God, but were forever rebuked in the spirit of Jehovah, and they went away, but not to work righteously, but to sympathize with one another and to complain against God and against the holy council of paradise. In groups, they assembled in places of their own and began to philosophize on the ways of heaven and earth. And everyone was sworn within himself to do no evil thing, but to find some more respectable way of serving Jehovah than by going amongst the ignorant and depraved. I ain't going down there. You go down there. Let's find something else to do for the great creator. But we ain't going down there. That is beneath me. But if you don't allow yourself to go down and mingle amongst your brethren and sisterin who are of lesser light, what good are you anyway?
Hold on, y'all. 1 second. Bring it over.
Mom, this one.
What?
Will you please go this way? Jackson was peeing on the floor.
Thank you. Y'all told me that yesterday, and his father already addressed that. Thank you. I'm back. Talking about my grandbaby deciding to not use the bathroom in an appropriate way. Okay. Back to page 390. I'm sorry, 592. Let me read verse 8 again. In groups, they assembled in places of their own and began to philosophize on the ways of heaven and earth. And everyone was sworn within himself to do no evil thing, but to find some more respectable way of serving Jehovah than by going amongst the ignorant and the depraved. And they became habituated in their meetings in 3 places in Hada, in Horaktu over Vidu, in Etashon over China, and in Hapsindi over Egypt. And these became like great heavenly cities because of the congregating of the angels of heaven, which continued for many years. She sure ain't, Tabitha. Astroff ain't playing no games. Now, finally, they resolved to organize each one of these 3 places with a distinct head and to unite 3 heads as one confederacy, and the whole to be dictated to the service of Jehovah. Thus was founded the Confederacy of the Holy Ghost. That's the title for today. The Confederacy of the Holy Ghost. Let me read that again. Now, finally, they resolved to organize each one of these 3 places with a distinct head and to unite 3 heads as one confederacy, and the whole to be dictated to the service of Jehovah. Thus was founded the Confederacy of the Holy Ghost. And by acclamation, 3 angels were raised to the 3 capitals, namely Kabbalates, I've heard this word before, this name. I'm saying it wrong. I know I am. Kabbalates of Horaktu, Inochissa of Itashon, and Luamong of Hapsindi. And each and every one of these 3 took the title Son of the Holy Ghost. These 3 had all been lords and were high in grade. And after grade is reference letter E. And E is on page 640. And it says, the obvious implication here is that even those in high grade, even those who have risen to serve a term as Lord, are not immune from gross errors. An amazing number of times throughout history, given in this text, one witnesses individuals who have risen high in grades only to falter and go astray because of their inflated egos and the worst of the 7 tetracts, selfishness, and especially deleterious combination during a period of darkness. Let me read that again. The obvious implication here is that even those high in grade, even those who have risen to serve a term as Lord, are not immune from gross errors. An amazing number of times throughout the history given in this text, one witnesses individuals who have risen high in the grades only to falter and go astray because of their inflated egos and the worst of the seven tetracts, selfishness, and especially deleterious combination during periods of darkness. Okay, inflated egos and selfishness. Okay, so let's go back to page 592. Let me pull this out real quick for her. Okay, page 592, verse 11. Enochisa selected 7 angels and gave them the rank of Lord, namely Haptu, Bazista, Myra, Erasigi, Adamon, Amesh, and Cap, Caxpa. Cacpa. Kabakles Kabaklites selected 7 angels and gave them the rank of Lord, namely Lewan, Amatar, Winites, Hawakam, Shongsi, Massaquatas, and Innis Skabab. Luamong selected, that's yours, Bella. It's hot. You gotta be careful. Luamong selected 7 angels and gave them the rank of Lord, namely Petubuseta, Rodi, Manulithins, Zetulia, Miriam, Zestes, and Abarathmes. Such then was the established confederacy, which was to play so great a part in the history of heaven and earth. And it differed from all other confederacies because its members all professed to serve Jehovah. And it required all of its people, and it required of all of its people an oath of allegiance to Jehovah, but under the name Holy Ghost, for they denied his person as such. And God admonished them, saying, though ye be wise in your own conceit, yet ye shall fail. For having denied his person, then will ye yourselves become the person and the understanding of the multitude. And that's what we got going on. And the understanding of the multitude, because they style themselves as certain things while yet denying the true creator. They got the people thinking that they are the creator, in fact, when they're not, right? So when the people's understand, they understand wrong. Even like we can be caught up in it, even ignorantly caught up into this thinking we're worshiping the creator. Because from our understanding, this is what entity will say that they're created when they're not, right? So we're like, yes, we worship God. God is the creator, when in fact he's not, right? The great creator is the great creator alone, right? Everybody else under him in ranks are, they are of lesser rank, right? Not even close to what a creator can do. Such then was the established confederacy, which was to play so great a part in the history of heaven and earth. And it differed from all other confederacies because its members all professed to serve Jehovah. And it required of all its people an oath of allegiance to Jehovah, but under the name Holy Ghost, for they denied his person as such. And God admonished them, saying, though ye be wise in your own conceit, yet shall ye fail. For having denied his person, then will ye yourselves become the person and the understanding of the multitude. And herein will ye soon or late come to grief. But nevertheless, the confederacy heeded not the words of God, and God was grieved at heart, talking about true God, the one truly put in charge by the Creator at this time, right? We ain't talking about the false ones. This is true God talking to them. But nevertheless, the confederacy heeded not the words of God, and God was grieved at heart for Jehovah's sake. Chapter 14, page 593. And under chapter 14, it says, God provided for the birth of Caillou. Caillou. And after Caillou is reference letter F. Back on page 640. F says Caillou or Caillou or Caillou or Caillou is usually called Confucius in English, 1882 edition. Okay, hold on. Let me put right here. Confucius. Okay. God provided for the birth of Caillou or Confucius. God said, behold, three conditions are now within the heavens of the earth: anarchy by the false gods and their slaves, the confederacy of the Holy Ghost, and the faithists in Jehovah and his resurrections. Now, therefore, let my chief Lewis come before me and hear the decree of God. Everybody remember what a Lewis is? A Lewis is the masters of generations. Those are the ones in charge. Remember, they are once human. All of these ranks are once humans, right? Whether on earth or another place that was in existence before the earth came into existence, right? Everybody lives forever. Your job positions, you grow in ranks, right? Lewis are the masters of um, generations. They're the one who record, watches the lives of children, their parents, the father, mother during a time of pregnancy, the whole atmosphere and lifestyle that was going on with the father and the mother to correctly prophesy what this child will be. Right? So it's not just boom, we give you a gift. No, that is created by the father and mother, their lifestyles, whether they have faith in a creator or not, whether you got one or the other. All of this stuff plays a part into what this child will be, right? Huh? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. That's how people can prophesy, whether they rightly or falsely prophesy. If they rightly prophesy, they're getting that information from the Lewis, because the Lewis is able to rightly prophesy. Your Ashar hears it and they pass that information on, so we can know it here in the corporal or the fleshly realm, or this realm right here where we're at. But they are the ones who collect this information for, I remember, I think it's up to 6 generations where they watch, right? They watch your parents, the parents' children, the children's children, on down to 6 generations to rightly prophesy, right? And I believe it takes, if I'm not mistaken, I think it, don't quote me, I got to double check it, but I think it takes 6 generations to spit out one who is capable of true prophecy or suis and sargus, right? Because, all right, that's enough, Bella. That's enough. Because the lifestyle, everything that goes into you, it has to be included you. You have to be like born with it. There's a natural inclination to the creator and the creator alone. But that takes many generations. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it's six to be able to birth somebody like that who will be a true faithist indeed, right? Okay. Let me just start over. Verse 1, page 593, chapter 14. God said, behold, 3 conditions are now within the heavens of the earth: anarchy by the false gods and their slaves, the confederacy of the Holy Ghost, and the faith is in Jehovah and his resurrections. Now, therefore, let my chief Lewis, Loo apostrophe is, let my chief Lewis come before me and hear the decree of God. The Lord said, when the chief Lewis had come before the throne, God said unto him, know then, O Thanactus, thou shalt go down to the earth, to the land of China, and by inspiration bring forth a birth capable of the all voice, but not capable of suis, and thou shalt accomplish this service, so that he shall be born into the mortal world at the time the Agi ceaseth to fall upon that land. And thou shalt provide him with great learning and great adversity and great experience withal, for he shall establish the fundamental doctrines of the nations of China. For his followers shall become the most numerous and peaceful inhabitants on the face of the earth. And as thou preparest for his birth by thy mastery over the generations of mortals, so shalt thou through these thy hosts raise up such. No, Bella already asked, because she asked first. I'm sorry, son. And as thou preparest for his birth by thy mastery over the generations of mortals, so shalt thou through these thy hosts raise up such as shall become disciples. For however great a man, though mightest, hold on. Okay. For however great a man thou mightest rise up, it is wisdom to have also born into the mortal world at the same era such hosts of philosophers as shall follow him and endorse his doctrines. For by this means the establishment of Jehovah and his light amongst mortals shall extend the whole length and breadth of the land. How sayest thou? The Nactus said, Jehovah's will and thine be done. This is the most welcome labor, O God, and I know the voices of my hosts are with me. God said, in Jehovah's name, crown I thee chief of the hosts of Lewis, for the land of China, for the birth of an heir, for the all voice of the great spirit. The Nactus was then crowned, and his hosts were provided with badges by God, for they were fouled before the throne, and hosts saluted and departed with due ceremony. Such then was God's labor for having born into the mortal world after many generations one that hath become known to the uttermost regions of the earth as Caillou, of him more anon, or whom we know as Confucius. Chapter 15, God provideth for the birth of Sakeah. There is a typo. Provided is spelt wrong. Provided. This E should be a R, but I guess people never catch these. They need an updated edition because I found a few typos. You don't find this if you don't like read it all the way through like we be doing. I be finding so many typos, but I know what it is, so I just keep reading. Okay. God provided for the birth of Sakeah. Sakeah has reference letter G after it. Back on page 640. G says Sakeah is often called Gautama Buddha, but incorrectly, as will be seen further on. 1882 edition. All right, so let's go back to page 593. No, son. Put them back. Everybody been asking. No.
Nobody been asking.
You know what? No, you handed them out yesterday, and you didn't ask. What I say last night?
How about this? How about this? Say and that and that.
You can talk that over with Isaiah. Get your hand out the screen because your hand is covering up Facebook. Okay. Get out of there, Isaiah. I close my pantry door.
Come on, Seth. Get out of there. Go upstairs.
Okay. Page 593. Again, God called before his throne Emilian Lewis and appointed Etchesa, chief over them, saying, Thou, O Etchesa, shalt go down to the earth, to the land of Vidu, taking these hosts with thee, and thou shalt establish a heavenly place of worship, which shall be thy headquarters. Behold, I have given thee many generations into which to bring about the desired result. Survey thou then the generations of faithists in that land, and take thy choice as to place and caste and family. He whom thou shalt bring forth for this purpose shall be of some royal family, a prince of high estate. I shall prove through him that love of right. Hold on. I shall prove through him that for love of righteousness and to serve Jehovah, he will forsake his kingdom and family and friends and all earthly things and desires, and make himself as a poor man, dwelling with the poor, laboring with them, teaching them and instructing them. For because of the idolatries that will be amongst these people, they will be bound in case. But he whom I will teach through shall prove unto the world that the service of Jehovah requireth of all men, that Jehovah shall stand uppermost, even before kin and caste. And the example of which willing sacrifice man shall be taught, that all the evils of the earth can be overcome. And thou shalt provide unto this man many disciples, and roadways for him to travel, and places to preach, and provide followers unto him to go about with him. For without these, his preaching and practice would be of little avail. See to it then that there may be born in the world a sufficient number to be disciples and followers of his doctrines, that he may be a power in the world for reestablishing the faithless in the great spirit. At the beginning of this sentence where it says, see to it then, after then is reference number 14, and at the bottom it says, that thy host control the generations of men that there may be. Okay, so let me just read the whole verse again. Verse 7, page 593. In chapter 15, because it's 2 verse 7s on this page. And thou shalt provide unto this man many disciples and roadways for him to travel, and places to preach, and provide followers unto him to go about with him. For without these, his preaching and practice will be of little avail. See to it then that there be born in the world a sufficient number to be disciples and followers of his doctrines, that he may be a power in the world for reestablishing the faiths in the great spirit. And thou shalt so provide these births that they will be of the same period of time. What sayest thou, Echesa? Echesa said, in Jehovah's name, I am thy servant with rejoicing. And I answer thee also for these my hosts, that this is a joy unto them for Jehovah's glory. God said, to which end I crown thee chief of Lewis for the land of Vidu. And God crowned Echesa, and he gave badges to the other Lewis. And after Echesa and his host filed past the throne of God, duly saluting, they also departed, going to the earth to the land of Vidu. Thus were Lewis empowered of God to bring into the world the heir, Sekeh. More of him anon. I'm going to read this. Where we at? We at 56? I'm going to read chapter 16 and we're going to pause. Okay, this is good. Let's get into Moses. Listen, Moses in heaven payeth the judgment of Jehovah. Chapter 16, page 593. Hamanastas, one of the chief marshals of God, and for the heavenly city of paradise, came before the throne, duly saluting and saying, O God, son of Jehovah, I would speak before thee. God said, speak thou, my son. Hamanastas said, there standeth without the city of paradise, beyond the pillars of fire, and in company with the high raised captains. We read this. I remember this now. Remember, we was trying to figure out why Moses allowed the slaughtering of the lamb at Passover. That was a curse upon Pharaoh and his land, whose name is Nugon, right? This is the chapter again. Boy, we got here quick. Listen. Oh, I hope I keep myself together. Listen. I'm going to start over. Chapter 16, page 593. Moses in heaven payeth the judgment of Jehovah. Hamanastas, one of the chief marshals of God, and for the heavenly city of paradise, came before the throne, duly saluting and saying, O God, son of Jehovah, I will speak before thee. God said, speak thou, my son. Hamanastas said, there standeth without the city of paradise, beyond the pillars of fire, in a company with thy high raised captains, one Nugon, delivered from one of the hells of Hassa over Egypt. And he crieth out continually, O God, son of Jehovah, deliver me, deliver thou me, O Moses, Moses, Moses. He is distracted continually, using these same words over and over without ceasing. Now behold, the nurses and physicians have tried all remedies they can invent, but failed utterly to break the spell upon him. For 70 days they have labored, and as a last resort, they have brought him hither that they might learn from thee. God said, Nugon, is this not one of the pharaohs who took up arms against the faithless in Egypt? Return thou, Hamanastas, to the keepers of this man, and cause him to be blindfolded, that he may endure the light of the throne. After which thou and his keepers shall bring him before me. Hamanastas saluted and departed, and after a certain time returned with the keepers and with Nugon, who was crying out unceasingly, even as had been said. And now, when he was quiet before the throne of God, God said to him, behold me, I am God, son of Jehovah. What wouldest thou? But the man heard not what God said, but kept crying out as before. Whereupon God said unto the keepers, remove ye the blinds a little, that the light may come upon him. And they removed the blinds a little, but lo and behold, the light made him more distracted than before. And when God saw his deplorable suffering, he inquired of his keepers how long the man had been in hell. And they said, 76 years, and in a not 3 years. God said, I know that this is Pharaoh who persecuted the Jews. Take him again without the walls and there retain him. I will send one of my swift messengers to Leka in Ethera, who knoweth the abiding place of Moses. Perhaps Moses put a curse upon him. If so, only Moses can deliver him. Y'all remember the story, right? I ain't gonna go back and read it because with the hour mark, but had this been Saturday or Sunday, we would pause right here, go all the way back to this, read that whole chapter again, then come back here. But y'all will have to do that on your own time. Keith, shalom. Look, it's been a look. We done already passed that name. Kabalictes. Thank you. Kabalictes. Right. I knew I was saying that wrong. Thank you, sis. If I come across it again, Kabalictes. Thank you. Y'all got to help me with the dashes and stuff to break the words up. Okay. I was saying Kabalicles. Okay. Kabalictes. Okay. Hold on. Let me put it here just in case we come across it again. Hold on. Lictes. Okay. Thanks, sis. Okay. Let's go back. Okay, I'll read verse 11 again. Page 594. God said, I know that this is Pharaoh who persecuted the Jews. Take him again without the walls and there retain him. I will send one of my swift messengers to Leka in Ethera, who knoweth the abiding place of Moses. Perhaps Moses put a curse upon him. If so, only Moses can deliver him. And the keepers took the spirit, Nugon, without the city as commanded by God. And God sent Heraponetus, sister of Raban, a swift messenger, and an arrow ship of fire to the Etherian worlds, to Gusa Wanicha, to Leka's sojourning place at that time, commanding her to lay the matter before the Nirvanian chief, Leka. Hereupon the report continueth in the words of Heraponetus, that is, and after that is reference number 15, and it says, that is, these are her words to wit. In not many days' time, I came before. So I'm going to read it all over again. Hold on. 15. Hold on. Okay, verse 13. Hereupon the report continueth in the words of Heraponetus, that is, I came before Jehovah's throne where sat Leka and told him the story of Nugon. And after Leka's reference number 16, Leka, through whose Etherian provinces the solar phalanx was now traveling, and I told him the story of Nugon. Verse 14, whereupon Leka, son of Jehovah, said, let my reporters of designations go find Moses. And if it be that Moses put a judgment on Nugon, or the Pharaoh of Egypt that held the Jews, the Hebrews in bondage, this Nugon, this Pharaoh, if it be that Moses put a judgment on Nugon, then must Moses return to the lower heavens and deliver him. The justice of Jehovah reacheth to all time and place. Heraponetus continued, whereupon I saluted before the throne of Jehovah, and in company with the reporters of destinations, started forth again in the Etherian realms. And after passing through 7 worlds and upward of 300 Nirvanian kingdoms, we entered the plains of Sapias, where are situated the colleges and schools of embassies belonging to the Giterpsan board of Retivius. And here we found Moses, who no sooner looked upon us, having been told that he was inquired after, than he prophesied the cause. Moses said, alas me, because thou hast come from me, thou hast awakened in me that which slept all these hundreds of years. Yea, it is true, I put a curse upon Pharaoh, for I said unto him, thou shalt yet call upon me to deliver thee out of torments. And I added thereto afterwards, saying, of the blood of the sacrifice of the lamb, this shall be the testimony of innocent blood against thyself and thy people for what the Hebrews have suffered. Instead of this, I should have forgiven him, O Jehovah, And after Jehovah is reference number 17. And at the bottom it says, "O Jehovah, Jehovah." So Moses is saying back in the day, because it was about to roll out with all the Hebrews and stuff, but Moses cursed Pharaoh before he left out of there. That's why they slaughtered that lamb. It didn't say they ate him like he do in the Bible. They didn't eat it. They slaughtered it, put a curse on him, right? And he said, instead of doing that, I should have just forgiven him and kept it moving. Listen. Moses said, "Alas me, because thou hast come from me, thou hast awakened in me that which slept all these hundreds of years. Yea, it is true. I put a curse upon Pharaoh, for I said unto him, Thou shalt yet call upon me to deliver thee out of torments. And I added thereto afterward, saying of the blood of the sacrifice of the lamb, This shall be the testimony of innocent blood against thyself and thy people for what the Hebrews have suffered. Instead of this, I should have forgiven him. O Jehovah, I have sinned before thee, and thou hast searched me out after all these years and brought the matter home to me." You got to go fix it, Moses. Let's go. "Thou art just, O thou Almighty. In thy name and by thy wisdom and power will I return to the lower heavens and take in charge the man and people I adjudge." And Moses wept, and he gave command to the builders to provide him at once with a suitable boat of great fleetness. And then Moses procured 30,000 volunteers to go with him. And when all things were in readiness, Moses took leave of his companions, and he and his hosts entered his fireboat, and presently our two vessels were and and presently our two vessels were underway, as if in a race for the red star, the earth. And after some days we arrived in the heavens of the earth, even at the city of paradise, the abiding place of God. Such is the brief of the heavenly report of Hierophonitus, for on her arrival in paradise, her mission was completed for the present. When it was known in paradise that Moses was coming, great joy was manifested, for God and the Holy 11 and the Holy Council all desired to see Moses. And God commanded the full board of marshals and also the musicians to go without the capital and meet Moses and escort him before the throne. And they accomplished these things. And Moses came before the throne of God, saluting in the sign of judgment of time. And God answered him under the sign, Thy labor is our joy and glory. And God said, In Jehovah's name, O Moses, come thou and honor my throne. And Moses went up and sat on the throne on the right hand of God. And Moses said unto the holy council and to the holy 11, Your God shall be my God. In his love and dominion, I am cast by Jehovah's will to deliver those that have suffered from me and my words. God said, Shall we not have a day of recreation first? Moses said, Nay, till I have delivered Nugan, that was Pharaoh, there can be no peace. Suffer therefore thy marshals to go to the keepers of this man and bring him before this throne. And now again, after a while, Nugan was brought in, all muffled up, to keep the light from hurting him. And he was still crying out, O God, son of Jehovah, O God, son of Jehovah, O Moses, Moses, Moses. And when Moses beheld this, he was nigh overcome by the pitiful scene. And Moses brushed away his tears and rose up, raising his hands to Jehovah, saying, Light of thy light, O Jehovah, power of thy power, O Jehovah, deliver thou him whom I accurse. Put his griefs and sorrows upon me that have sinned against him. A mantle of yellow light, cloud like, descended upon Moses, and he stood transfixed before Jehovah. All the place was still as death. The blinds and muffles on Nugan fell off, and he stood silent and motionless, gazing with fixed awe upon the holy scene and upon Moses on the throne of God. The Spirit of Jehovah moved upon the holy place, and the musicians felt the power. It was the light of one who was mighty from the Ethereal worlds. Gently, then, the music of 10,000 voices fell upon the holy audience, first mild, as if far off, then louder and louder, as if coming near, till soon the words of the anthem proclaimed Jehovah's praise. Nugan turned not his eyes from the glory of Moses and the Ethiopian mantle, for he knew Moses, even as if it were but yesterday that they parted in Egypt on the earth. Slowly, now Moses lowered his upstretched arms, and his hands were brilliant like yellow fire. And Moses said solemnly, all praise to thee, Jehovah, Eloah. Thou art just, thou almighty creator. Nugan added, for through him is all deliverance, worlds without end. In thy praise will I sing forever, O Jehovah. Oh, this is something new for Pharaoh, praising the creator. Now come through, Nugan. Listen, look, I'm going to read 36 again. Slowly, now Moses lowered his upstretched arms, and his hands were brilliant like yellow fire. And Moses said solemnly, all praise to thee, Jehovah, Eloah. Thou art just, thou almighty creator. Nugan added, for through him is all deliverance, worlds without end. And thy praise will I sing forever, O Jehovah, thou most high God of Moses, my deliverer. Make me strong, O Jehovah, that I can look upon him whom I persecuted and abused. Then Moses looked upon Pharaoh, Nugan, and said, these things had to be. Thou wert the last of thy pyramidal age. Thou wert the last of the pyramidal age of man, and I the first founder of the migration of the righteous. All things are done by Jehovah in his own way and time. As by my curse upon thee and thy people, I have been bound to come back to deliver thee and them. So by thy curse against Israel, thou shalt now return down to the earth and labor to lift up Israel. For Israel hath fallen from communities and have taken to kings after the manner of the heathen and the idolater. Her people are divided and broken up, and many of them have become worshippers of the false gods Baal and Ashtaroth. Well, the first time when I was getting through this, I was all tears and voice cracking. I knew it was coming up again. Look, I'm prepared a little bit for it. Yea, they are forgetful of my commandment of peace and love, and have taken to war and to earthly aggrandizement. And thou shalt take with thee 10,000 angels of exalted grades, and go down to the earth to the inhabitants of the Israelites, and by inspiration, thou and thy hosts shall select and inspire such of the Israelites as are within reach of inspiration, and thou shalt take them away from all other of their people and from the heathen and idolatrous tribes that are around about them. And thou and thy host shall abide with these mortals hundreds of years, re-establishing them in peace and non-resistance after the manner of the doctrines in the Esian worlds. And thou shalt call them Essenes, that they may be distinguished from all other peoples. And after Essenes is reference letter H, and also after peoples is I. So let's read H first for Essenes. On page 640, Essenes says, when this word is used in heaven, it is usually pronounced Essene, but when on earth, Essene. Some interpreters call these tribes Essenes or Essene Jews, 1882 edition. And let's see, and thou shalt call them Essenes, that they may be distinguished from all other peoples. And after peoples, like I said, is reference letter I, and I says, this is an excellent example, as elucidated throughout Oahspe, that no apparent evil is absolute and irreversible, and that no soul is forever lost. Here we revisit the hated Pharaoh who mercilessly pursued Moses. I said, what did I say? I told you no, but Bella did say she would allow you to end one while she ended the other.
Mom, Bella said to me that I could end on both of them.
Well, she didn't say that to me. She said she would end this one and she'll let you end that one. Go. I'll let you know when to come back down. This is an excellent example, as elucidated throughout Oahspe, that no apparent evil is absolute and irreversible, and that no soul is forever lost. Here we revisit the hated Pharaoh who mercilessly pursued Moses into the Red Sea. We now learn that he is to become a loyal inspirer of the Essenes, from which Joshua of Nazareth of Nazareth was raised, right? And this is the real, we'll say the real Jesus, right? But not the one you see in the New Testament. That one is all chopped and screwed and mixed up, right? We're gonna learn about the real Joshua, who was of the Essenes, right? Okay. Let's go back, page 595. I'll just read 43 again and we'll keep going. And thou and thy host shall abide with these mortals hundreds of years, re-establishing them in peace and non-resistance, after the manner of the doctrines in the Essene worlds. And thou shalt call them Essenes, that they may be distinguished from all other peoples. Nugan said, Thy decree is most just, O Moses, and I know of a truth, thy words are Jehovah's. I pray thee, how long shall this labor be for me and my host? Moses said, Some hundreds of years, until thou hast raised a light sufficient unto Jehovah, that peace and love and the doctrine of good for evil again be reestablished from the blood of the Israelites, even as by the blood of the Lamb I delivered Jehovah's people out of Egypt. And when thou hast perfected the generations of the Essenes, thou shalt have sent to thee from the throne of God certain Lewis, and they will labor with thee until an Israelite is born into the mortal world, capable of the Father's voice. New God. Hold on. This part. Nugan said, Hear me now in my plea, O Moses, thou son of the Most High. When I died as to the earth and entered heaven, as to these worlds, I found my kingdom as to what was before me in heaven waiting for me, and they were miserable, being beggars and slaves and idiots because of the slavery I put them in the earth life, and I could not escape them or put them aside. If I went away objectively, then subjectively I remembered them, and was drawn back to them. Yea, I was like a young colt that first being haltered pulleth away, but faileth, then pulleth again and faileth, and so on until he findeth he cannot escape, then tamely submitted. Even so was I bound to my kingdom, and obliged in the end to yield and become a slave unto them to provide for them. For so, for I had so despoiled them of their talents, they were as helpless as infants, and many of them wicked in the extreme. Nevertheless, I accepted that which could not escape. I toiled with them hundreds of years. Listen, I just thought about something when he said this. Think about a young toddler, right? Listen to this, y'all. I'm gonna read this again. This is crazy. I, this thought just came to me. I'm gonna read verse 49. Yea, I was like a young colt that first being haltered pulleth away, but faileth, then pulleth again and faileth, and so on until he findeth he cannot escape, then tamely submitteth. Even so was I bound to my kingdom, and obliged in the end to yield and become a slave unto them to provide for them. For I had so despoiled them of their talents, they were as helpless as infants, and in many of them wicked in the extreme. Think about not necessarily infants. Infants are helpless, but think about them when they get a little bit older, maybe like 1 or 2, and they go through them terrible 2 stages of that crying stage where they crying all the time. Maybe not all children do that, but some children just cry all the time, and they're pulling on you, and like they're not listening. They want to be held all the time, like you need to do something for me. Even when you pick them up, they're still hollering and screaming. You trying to figure out what's wrong with them, and you just let them cry till they cry themselves to sleep if you don't fall asleep first from all the weariness and stuff. Imagine having a kingdom with toddlers like that. on one parent, right? That Pharaoh being that one parent. This is what I saw. A bunch of toddlers, like his kingdom, he had so despoiled them that they were as helpless as infants and they were turning to him and he didn't know what to do, right? So as he was trying to get away, look, y'all, and you just go in there and cry by yourself. I'm gonna go stand out here till it kept being pulled back because you've always been pulled back to the voice of your crying child, trying to calm him down and stuff. And he was overwhelmed by a kingdom full of these people who were once his servants or slaves while on earth. Now they've all passed away and they met you there, homie. Right now, everything that you didn't teach them, you gonna have to do something here because they're still attached to you, or rather, you are still attached to them, right? And that's how he got met. Think about it. It's one of you. Now they crying. They pulling on you, trying to climb all up on you. That's what they was doing to him. And he ended up in a knot. And he been there, right? All these crying toddlers, babies, don't know what to do, looking to you because you was the leader. You was the master. Tell us what to do. But you ain't helping them. Now all y'all in there crying. You balled up in fetal position. And it's a mess. And the children are like, it's time to go rescue Nugon. Yep. Listen, hold on. Verse 49. Hold on, Tabitha says something. Oh, okay. Y'all talking amongst each other. Listen. Verse 49, page 595. Yea, I was like a young colt that first being haltered pulleth away, but faileth, then pulled again and faileth, and so on until he findeth he cannot escape, then tamely submitteth. Even so was I bound to my kingdom and obliged in the end to yield and become a slave unto them to provide for them. For I had so despoiled them of their talents, they were as helpless as infants, and many of them wicked in the extreme. So, really, for real, the parents, we are kind of like the slaves of the infants until they get a little bit older. But if you don't teach these jokers something as they grow, you're going to be constantly waiting on them hand and foot, and you're going to be like little Johnny out here. No, mom, I'm sick of it. You shut up. I'm like, little. I wish. Oh, my children know better. Even my children like, we seen so much of this at Disney. My kids was like, like they know better. Yeah. Act like Lil John if you want to. My husband was telling my sister, but yo, babe, listen, babe, come here. I kid y'all not. It's sad, but it's you know you kind of doing something right if your children recognize this craziness. Listen. So remember you was telling Alicia last night about when we was at in Disney and remember we had got the ice cream and you and Zay had one. Look, y'all hear my husband? Y'all should have seen his face. He's like, ooh, go ahead, tell him the story.
Oh, well.
Listen.
This is the more kind way of saying this story.
Listen.
So we was there.
Hold on, Pooh. Hold on. Wait.
We was there and I had seen we had stopped for some funnel cakes and ice cream. So when we had stopped, what was you at?
I was still over there. I was waiting for the rest of the funnel cakes. And okay. You went to get us a table because it had started raining. You and Zay walked over to get a table.
So when we left, I seen this child, you know what I mean? He was screaming like, where's my dad? Where's my dad? So people looking like, ooh, somebody lost their child.
And Disney is big. How old was the child?
Child had to be about 7, something like that. 7. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And he was just screaming at the top of his lungs. And I'm like, dang, man, somebody, and the boy was screaming like, seriously. So I was just like, dang, man, somebody left their child. So my heart went out to my own kids, like, hold up, I got to keep my kids real tight. You know what I mean? So when his dad came from behind and said, hey, buddy, I'm right here. That boy turned around and looked at his daddy and hit his daddy in the face. Listen, man, he hit his daddy in the face not once. He two-pieced him. Yeah. His dad like, hey, buddy, I'm right here. He said, you left me. I said, whoa. So I took our kids and I walked real fast to our table. And I told them, I said, if y'all ever As long as your hind parts is black and it's pointing towards the ground. Ever. Raise your voice. Them kids looked at me and said, "No, sir. We would never ever." I said, "Okay, now y'all can eat y'all funnel cake and ice cream."
Yo. And that was not the first. I told y'all about that one kid. Josh was like, he was allowed. He said, "What is going on here?" This kid looked to be about 14, 15 years old, going off on his dad. Like, not even the mamas. These were dads. I'm like, first of all, I couldn't even conceive that you even acting that way towards your father, because my kids, I mean, they may give me some trouble. But all daddy got to do is just, y'all heard this morning. I told Isaiah to get out the pantry, and then he didn't know his dad was around here, coming around the corner. He still stood in there moving slow. What your mama just say? You like, did like that, going, he said, "Get upstairs," and no problems. Sometimes they may mumble under their breath a little bit, try and get away with stuff with me.
Listen, man, if you catch it young,
yeah,
you get what I'm saying? If you catch it, if you nip it in the bud, you ain't gonna have no problems. You know what I mean? It just comes to the place where certain people, you want to be friends with your kids. I ain't got time for that. You know what I mean? I'm no friends towards kids that I raise. I pay for this. I'm not your friend. I'm your parent.
We'll be there when you get a little bit older and get some wisdom under your belt. When you get kids.
That's all, man. It's just simple things in life, man. You know what I mean? Raise up a child.
Listen. So I said all that with this whole situation right here with Pharaoh Nugon. He had a kingdom full of these, let's say, bratty children. Well, not necessarily bratty, but they allowed them to get this way, right? Not disciplining them, making them say, doing things like you enable them to act this way, right? So now you got to deal with all of this, and it overwhelmed him, and that's how knots happen. That's what happens when you amass a kingdom to yourself and you're not teaching them to grow, you're not raising them up, you just really have them there waiting on you, hand and foot, being your slave. Yeah, you get that kingdom back, and then you be like, "I want it not." Yes, you gonna get it, and you gonna fix it. You screwed it up, you fix it. Jesus ain't coming to take the wheel. You gonna fix it, Nugon. You gonna fix it, Pharaoh. Listen, okay. Verse 49. Yea, I was like a young colt that first, being haltered, pulleth away, but faileth, then pulleth again and faileth, and so on until he findeth he cannot escape, then tamely submitteth. Even so was I bound to my kingdom, and obliged in the end to yield and become a slave unto them, to provide for them. For I had so despoiled them of their talents, they were as helpless as infants, and many of them wicked in the extreme. Nevertheless, I accepted that which I could not escape. I toiled with them hundreds of years, restoring them as well as I could. And in time, a ray of happiness came to me in the hope that in hundreds of years to come, I should find my way out. But alas me, darkness, Aji, came upon my already dark heaven. My evil ones, such as I had slaughtered on earth, my evil ones, such as I had slaughtered on earth, came upon me for vengeance sake. Anarchy overflooded me and my people. They became very demons of madness, and they seized me and bound me and bruised me and suffocated me with horrid smells, millions of them. And their curses pierced me. Sorry. And their curses pierced me like poison arrows. Long I fought them, and I cried out unto thee and to Jehovah. But alas, I was in hell. None could hear my prayers. For days and months and years I held out, only to experience new and more terrible horrors. How long this woe was upon me, I know not. I only remember that my soul sickened within me, and I felt a sinking and a fainting, like an endless death that could not extinguish me. To me it seemeth 10,000 ages. Suddenly I find myself here, distracted before thee, thou holy Son of the Great Spirit. Whence came I? What hath occurred? Or is this but a spell of delirious dream? And will I relapse again into yonder terrible nightmare of horrors? How can I go hence that mine own kingdom come not upon me? Do they not wait hereabout somewhere? He like, listen, am I dreaming? Because I got some relief. How did you get me? How did I get here? Is my kingdom, that kingdom I was at, the horrors, is that still waiting for me? Am I going to wake up? Listen. Suddenly, I find myself here, distracted before thee, thou holy Son of the Great Spirit. Whence came I? What hath occurred? Or is this but a spell of delirious dream? And will I relapse again into yonder terrible nightmare of horrors? How can I go hence that my own kingdom come not upon me? Do they not wait hereabout somewhere to seize me again for renewed torments? O teach me, thou Moses, how can I fulfill thy righteous judgment and not be entrapped again, and perhaps forever? Moses said, I will give thee a new name, and I will clothe thee in garments of mine own making, so they will rather flee from thee than come to thee. So Moses gathered up of the yellow cloud like mantle, and made a mantle, and clothed Nugon, and he named him Iles, Iles, Illaes, signifying servant of light. And after that, he was provided with 10,000 co-laborers, assisted by Gaphaniah, and sent back to earth on his mission. And God appointed 100 messengers unto Pharaoh, that word might be transpired. And God appointed 100 messengers unto Pharaoh, that word might be transmitted every month to paradise. And this is where we will pause at today, beautiful people. I did not realize it was going to take another whole half hour just to get through these 57 verses. Probably if I hadn't butted in with my stories, but I think they were needful to, make sure the point sunk deep down in our shananas. All right, y'all. So that's it for today. This was good. 596. All right, y'all. So it is Monday. Happy Monday, September the 12th, 2022, day 210 of year 4, reading through the books of the law and the prophets, and of the 4-year consecutive day count, day 1214. And we are still reading in Oahspe, God's book of Eskra, and we read pages 590. Actually, went back to 589 for chapter 8. We read pages 589 to page 596. We'll just pick this back up here tomorrow. And it's still going over Moses and the Hebrews and stuff. But I would like to keep going, but people got to get to work. So with that being said, I love y'all. Bella, come on, let's end it. You said Zay can end one of them. All right, let them work this out together. All right, beautiful people. Oh, listen. Hold on. Prayer of praise. Let's let this listen. Father, thank you that you don't leave us. Hold on, Pootie. Hold on. Not that we want to go, but even here on lower level, that's that. You know what? That's selfish, but still. Let me just say it this way. Father, thank you that you don't leave your children trapped in hell forever. Yeah, here and when we pass. I think that's still kind of selfish, but that being said, he is the ultimate deliverer, and even that is just right. I think our outlook on shucks, hell is just horrible, period, right? But now I understand it to be more than just the spookiness and what we were taught in church of what it is, right? It's literally a science to all of these things, even Tahara or hell, right? All right, y'all. So with that being said, we out of here. I love y'all. I'll see y'all back here tomorrow morning, bright and early, 7:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Peace. Thank you, Vanette. I just saw your comment come through. She said, I fully enjoy your stories. Bye, y'all. Peace. Peace.
Mom, guess what?
What?
Oh, Dad, guess what?
What? Huh?
I said it.
You said what?
Uh,
Right here. Never delete. Never delete. Right there.
Mom, okay. Guess what? You called Dad. Guess what?
What?
I actually said, yeah, and you said, come here.
Mm-hmm. Bye, y'all.
Peace.